Greetings, children, and welcome to my chamber. My name is Rotherick Blood, and I'm your host of Tales from the Dark Chamber. This week, we have a great show for you. Tales to make your skin crawl. Each week, my chambermate and I read a scary tale that we found on the internet, or perhaps left under some corpse. Either way, we think you're going to like it, and we're just dying for you to hear it. So sit right back, light a candle, and let's have a ghoul evening. So, Woody, had any good nightmares lately?
Nah, not after last week's. I decided to lay off the late-night snacks.
Oh, well, maybe next week then, eh?
God, I hope not. I couldn't sleep for a week.
I know. I was
What's that, Rotherick?
watching the moonrise and noticed that your bedroom light was on.
Yes, it was. I kept having these delusions of seeing shadows move, doors opening and closing, and the worst part, I thought I saw blood dripping from the walls.
Woody, you do know that this is our mansion. Blood drips from the walls all the time.
Yeah, I kinda noticed that. But this was different.
Eh?
Yeah, the walls also chanted and spoke to me in a weird voice. Almost like...
A woman's voice, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be Repulsia Gastblood. Or what's left of her.
Excuse me?
She was my cousin. Have her in one of the special rooms upstairs. Now that you mention it, I think her room is adjacent to yours.
What?
Oh, no need to worry. She's harmless. Likes to make new friends. In fact, she mentioned she would like to meet you sometime.
I'll take a rain check on that one. Are there any more special rooms that you would like to tell me about?
Not at the moment. I just wouldn't enter room number 6.
Great gravy. I guess I'll have to find out on my own then, eh? And that leads us into tonight's story. Where we left off, Chuck was being held captive in the mystery house, being led from room to room, one nightmare after another. This house has it in for him, but he doesn't understand why. Tonight, we find out what this house means and what it does to Chuck in the last part of Trapped by Hillbilly Creeper. Enjoy. Trapped by Hillbilly Creeper, Part 2. These questions ran through my head all at once. My mind was clouded with even more questions that couldn't be answered. My thoughts became heavy as I focused on the images that appeared of my late sister. She looked as she did when she was alive, but she seemed different. She looked dead at me, her eyes staring into my soul. She spoke words she never would have said to her own flesh and blood when she was alive. She said, "You have failed me, little brother. You let me die. You let me become food for the worms. You're nothing but a poor excuse for family. Pathetic pile of shit that deserves to die right here, right now." I began begging, "No, that's not true. You know I would never let you die. And besides, you had cancer. There was nothing I could do. Nothing the doctors could do." My sister smirked. "Excuses, excuses, excuses. That's all you're fucking good for. Our mother should have let you die when you were born. You are nothing but a waste of life." I begged her once more. "That's not true. Stop. You're not my sister. My sister would never say such things to me. Stop it now." My sister laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha. You pathetic man. You are weak, just like every other human on this planet. Fragile. Soft. It wouldn't be so cute if it wasn't so fucking vomit-inducing." I begged her one last time, shouting, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" As the entity continued torturing my mind, I yelled for it to stop. It was getting to the point where I couldn't take it much longer. I knew this thing wasn't my sister, but it was telling me things that only me and my sister knew. It was using traumatizing events of my childhood against me. When I couldn't take any more than I already had, she disappeared and the screen went black. The room was dark once more, but only for a moment as the lights came back on. My eyes adjusted to the light and realized I wasn't alone. In the corner of the room facing away from me was a little boy, and he was crying. Being cautious as possible, I slowly approached the boy. I had to make sure that he wasn't a threat to me. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. I softly tapped him on the shoulder, asking him if he was all right. "Hello, little boy. Are you all right? Are you hurt?" The little boy continued to cry. I tried to comfort the little guy, but he kept his back to me, still crying. When he finally stopped crying, he spoke to me in a voice that sounded very familiar to me. The little boy cried,
"Why did you have to grow up, Chuck? Why couldn't you stay young and be a good little boy?"
I was deeply confused. "What are you trying to tell me? Who are you and how do you know my name?" The little boy smiled.
"I've known you all your life, Chuck. Don't tell me you've forgotten."
I was dumbfounded. In my confusion, I said, "Forgotten you? I don't even know you, kid." The little boy smiled once more.
"Of course you do, Chuck. I've been with you all your life."
As the boy said this, he turned around and faced me at last. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The little boy was me. I was speechless, lost for words. I didn't understand it, but of course, after what I had seen and heard, anything was possible in this place. I looked at him as he looked back at me. He took my hand almost like he was trying to comfort me for a brief moment. I did feel comfortable. It was me after all, and I knew better not to hurt myself. The little boy asked softly,
"You want out of here, don't you? If you can trust me, I will help you."
I apologized. "I'm sorry if I seemed kind of skeptical after what I've been through. Trusting something in this place doesn't seem like an option for me." He smiled softly and looked at me with those big blue eyes I once had as a child, but had faded as I got older. The little boy calmly said,
"It's okay. I swear I'm not here to harm you. I'm only here to help you, so if you want out of here, you need to follow me."
I rolled my eyes. "All right. It's not like I have any other choice. If I can't trust myself, who the hell can I trust anyway?" The little boy giggled softly. I gripped his hand as a new door appeared. We walked out of the room and back into the hallway. He started to lead me to the exit. This time, it was me and myself against this house, and we walked past many doors and many rooms. There was even a room that had an alligator pit in it. I asked, "What type of person keeps an alligator in their room?" My younger self looked at me and just shrugged. The little boy spoke,
"I don't know either, but we've got to keep going."
We walked past more rooms, going deeper into the belly of the beast. We could have easily gotten lost, and I thought we may be until we opened one last door. It led us to the living room, the same living room that I had started in. This time, it was different, however. There were no cobwebs to be seen, no dust anywhere, and the sheets were no longer on the furniture. I said, spooked, "Thank God we're out of that hallway and out of those damn rooms." As I said this, the door to the outside appeared. I was finally going to get out. I ran to the door and it immediately opened on its own. I was relieved to smell the fresh air and happy to be out of that house. As soon as I stepped off the porch, I saw my friend Richie waiting for me. Never in my life was I so happy to see that stupid dopehead. I ran up to him and hugged him, saying to him, "You were waiting for me all this time?" He looked at me confused and told me, "Dude, you were only in there for like 5 minutes." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What felt like hours, days even. Only 5 minutes had passed out here. All that didn't matter now. All that mattered was I was finally free thanks to my younger self. I told Richie I wanted to go home, and since he sobered up, he drove. When I entered the house, I crashed hard on the couch, unable to make it to my bed. I was so tired, but I was glad that my nightmare was over. After only a few hours of sleep, I was awoken by the sound of a small child crying. I opened my eyes, allowing them to adjust to the light. When I focused on my surroundings, I realized I wasn't in my house. Instead, I was in another room connected to the hallway of the mystery house. I sat straight up, suddenly terrified. How in the hell did I end up back here? I was in my own home, I said to myself. I had to come to the realization that this house was toying with my mind, making me see things I didn't want to see. There had to be some way out of here. I couldn't think about it anymore. I became distracted by the sobbing and crying that had woken me in the first place. I headed toward the source of the crying, and there I found my younger self yet again. This time, he wasn't crying because he was lonely. He was crying because he thought he could help me, but he had failed to do so. He continued to cry, but managed to speak.
I am so sorry, Chuck. I thought I could help you, but I can't. Please forgive me.
I sighed and gently placed my hand upon his head, patting it. It's quite all right. It's not your fault I'm here. It's mine. If I hadn't come to this damn place to begin with, I wouldn't be going through this torture. I put on my best fake smile and gestured to my younger self to follow me. I had a feeling he might be part of this nightmare, but he was my younger self. If I couldn't trust myself, who could I trust at this point? We made it to the hallway and started our journey all over again. The lights blinked on and off again, and I started to see more images of the man that I saw before off in the distance. This time, he was carrying a hatchet and appeared to be dragging a black trash bag behind him. A crimson substance was leaking from it. I could only assume it was blood. What else could it have been? But again, I shook my head and chalked it up as an illusion. This time, it wasn't going away. The man was walking towards me, getting closer and closer. He was dragging the body bag and swaying the axe back and forth. Not wanting to see what would happen when he reached me, I jumped into another room without hesitation or thought. As soon as I stepped into the room, I realized I left my younger self out there with the axe-wielding maniac. I turned back too late. Oh shit! I forgot my younger self was with me. How could I have been so fucking careless? He's only a kid. I hope he's all right by himself. Until the next door appeared, I'd have to figure out what this room was. The light suddenly clicked on, and right in the middle of the room was a chair. I stepped closer to it and realized there was a note written on it that simply read, "Sit." I was hesitant, but what other choice did I have? Until this psychotic trial was over, the door wouldn't open again. I sat down immediately. Restraints appeared, wrapping tightly around my arms. Another wrapped around my neck, ensuring that I couldn't move. When I thought it couldn't get any worse, the light shut off and a screen popped up on the wall in front of me. For a minute, there was nothing but static, and then an image started to appear. As the static faded away, the image became clearer. I wasn't sure what I was seeing at first. It seemed to be a video of a pregnant woman rubbing her belly. As the image got stronger, I realized exactly who it was. The woman was my late fiancée, Shelley. I burst into tears as I watched the screen. The death of my once beloved fiancée and our soon-to-be child was something I thought I had forgotten. I realized memories don't fade away with time. They just get buried deep within us. All it takes is a little sliver of an image to bring back those emotions overflowing like a boiling pot of water. My fiancée Shelley and her poor unborn child were killed tragically in a robbery gone wrong. Shelley was working at a gas station and I was coming to surprise her at work to take her to dinner. When I got there, I saw the flashing blue and red lights. As soon as I stepped out of my car, my whole world came crumbling down. An officer on the scene walked towards me with a look of remorse on his face. The officer reached me and asked, "Are you Chuck?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yes, officer." "What happened? Is my fiancée Shelley okay?" He took off his hat and shook his head. "Sir, I'm sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but your fiancée was killed in a robbery." My whole body went limp, and I collapsed to the ground. Tears fell onto the pavement below me. That was 10 years ago. Now I'm sitting here being reminded by this fucking house of what could have been if I had arrived there a little earlier that night. I could have saved my beloved Shelley and our unborn child. As I sat there strapped to the chair sobbing, I begged for that image to go away. Shelley stopped rubbing her stomach and looked up at me. Her stare so menacing that it pierced through my very soul. She smiled maniacally at me. Blood started to drip from her mouth and nose, covering her. She opened her mouth and croaked out one sentence.
It's all your fault.
All of a sudden, she reached behind her back and pulled out a rusty-looking blade. Shelley sliced open her stomach. She screamed in agony as the blade ripped through her skin, and from the open wound, she pulled out a developed baby. Still screaming, she held out our child for me to see as though she was proud of what she'd done. The baby screamed and cried in an ear-piercing shriek. Raising the rusty blade, Shelley stabbed the baby over and over again until it finally stopped screaming. I struggled to get free from my restraints. I had to hold back the urge to vomit. In the back of my mind, I knew that this was not my Shelley. She wouldn't do such a thing, especially to our unborn child. It wasn't her. It was this fucking house trying to get to me, trying to break me down. I finally broke free from my restraints and lifted the chair over my head. I smashed the screen and screamed out to whatever was doing this to me. "That's enough! You hear me?" I yelled. All of a sudden, the lights clicked on again and the door opened. I stepped out of that room and back into the hallway, coming face to face with the axe-wielding man. He'd been waiting for me. I could finally see him close up now. He had a mask over his face, tattered and torn. It appeared to be made out of skin. Blood-stained and smelling of copper, he approached me. I thought I was dead until I felt a tug on my shoulder. It was my younger self.
Come with me. Come quick,
he said calmly. Without hesitation, I followed him into another room. The door disappeared and I began to look around. I shouldn't, due to the torture I'd endured in the other rooms. But this one had me very curious. This particular room had nothing in it, or at least nothing bad. It was just a white room, similar to the others, but unlike the others, it was calm and quiet. Almost safe even. I reminded myself it may have appeared safe, but even the safest places could be dangerous. I was right. The false sense of security of this room almost became our tomb. The walls started to close in, moving closer and closer. My younger self started to panic and scream.
Chuck, what are we going to do? We're going to die.
I took a deep breath. Just calm down, little buddy. I'm thinking of something. We're not going to die. If I can make it out of a room that fucks with your mind, I'm able to make it out of this as well. You and me. I had to think fast or we would surely die. That's when I noticed something that wasn't there before. A metal pole lay on the ground almost as though it had been placed there on purpose. If I braced the pole between the two walls, it could keep them from closing in. We'd have a slight chance of surviving. I grabbed the pole and waited until the walls got close enough to jam it in between them. As soon as my plan was in place, the walls stopped advancing on us. What do you know? A door appeared again, giving us enough time to get out of the room before the pole collapsed under the weight of the walls. We jumped out just before the walls crushed the pole. All that mattered was we were back in the hallway. We got off the ground, dusted ourselves off, and looked around to see if the masked man with the axe was still around. Luckily, he wasn't. I grabbed the hand of my younger self and told him that he was coming with me. He was not going to be out of my sight again. We walked down the hallway yet again. It seemed to go on for hours. The lights began to flicker again. If the masked man appeared again, I wanted to be ready. I wouldn't be taken off guard this time. We didn't see him, however. What we did see was a baby stroller. Covered in blood, this wasn't just any baby stroller. It looked like the same one I bought for the baby when I found out my fiancé was expecting. I was so happy that day, proud even, knowing that my beloved Shelley was carrying my child. It's strange how a simple object can bring back memories as well as pain. I was snapped back into reality by my younger self. He looked up at me curiously.
Chuck, are you okay? You spaced out for a minute.
I tried to smile for his benefit, but failed miserable. Yes, I'm fine. Just remembering the past is all. I pushed the stroller out of the way and went on. I continued on with my younger self, desperately trying to find a way out. When I thought all hope was lost, we finally found the end of the hallway, and wouldn't you know it, we found ourselves back in the kitchen. This time the kitchen was even more destroyed. There wasn't only blood all over the walls and floor. No, there were scattered body parts as well. Some of them had been torn limb from limb, piece by piece. I tried to do everything in my power to cover up my younger self's eyes. A boy this age shouldn't be subjected to such horror. I kept my hand over my younger self's eyes as I inspected the chopped-up corpse. I couldn't believe my eyes. It couldn't be true. The body was that of my best friend Richie. Jesus Christ, Richie, this can't be you. You were waiting outside for me. Don't tell me you came in here looking for me, I said to myself. All of a sudden, the severed head came to life and stared at me. It began to speak in a demonic version of my friend's voice.
Why did you do it, Chuck? Why did you destroy your entire life and your loved ones with it?
What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, buddy. You know what you did, and you know what you have to do.
I'd heard enough. I closed my eyes and kicked Richie's head as it laughed demonically. It rolled across the floor, and I grabbed my younger self, heading towards the door. I made it to the door. It was locked. No matter how hard I tried or how hard I pulled, the door wouldn't budge. All of a sudden, an overwhelming feeling came rushing into my head, causing me to collapse on the floor. Illusions of my dead fiancé, Richie's severed head, the masked man, and my younger self flashed before my eyes. They surrounded me, chanting the words,
It's your fault. It's your fault.
I begged them to stop. Please, God, I wanted them to stop. My younger self kneeled down and whispered into my ear,
You're never getting out of here, Chuck.
I screamed, No! Dark Hills Institution for the Unstable. The doctor walks into a patient's room and introduces himself.
Hello, I am Dr. Bradford. I've been assigned to your case. I was going over your file. It says you were brought here 10 years ago when you murdered your pregnant fiancée because you thought she was cheating on you with your best friend Richie. You decided to hack him up into pieces, so the record says. It also says when you were found, you were wearing a mask made out of skin. Is that right?
The doctor tries to talk to Chuck, but all he did was to repeat one thing over and over. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Chuck wanted to escape from his nightmare, but now he's forever chained in a prison of his own guilt with no chance of escaping. Trapped by Hillbilly Creeper, Part 2. Well, folks, that's our story tonight. Rotherick and I hope you enjoyed it. We sure had a great time bringing it to you, and we really appreciate you listening. Tune in next week when we bring you another chilling Tales from the Dark Chamber. And just a note, if you're an aspiring author and want your story read here on Tales from the Dark Chamber, send us a note at talesfromthedarkchamber@gmail.com. If it creeps old Rotherick out enough, we'll air it. And subscribe to our channel here for notification of our next new episode, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember, hit that like button and help us grow the channel. Also, make sure you tell your friends about us. Spread the word. If you want your story recorded for your own use, or just want to have it, check out my website at woodygvoiceover.net. You can order there. And again, thank you for listening tonight.